live stream. And we welcome you to join us for other opportunities that are more interactive directly with the monitor through our town hall series of events and community meetings. But this meeting is a small group meeting where we really wanted to talk through some updates, announcements, make some remarks and some issues. The theme for the evening is going to be on NYCHA readiness for the summer, as well as some key updates and concerns that other CAC members have. We'll talk through a number of things. Traditionally, this meeting, and this is our 11th meeting, thank you all for hanging with us and all the hard work you've been doing on this committee. We typically go for 2 hours. This is typically from 6 to 8 p.m. We have tried this evening to abbreviate the time slot from 6 to 7:30. We'll see how that will work, but we have a lot of ground to cover. So I ask you to bear with us if we do run closer to 8, but I will try to keep us close to time. And to do that, I will ask that you honor your 5 or 10-minute time slots. Accordingly, they're all on the agenda, which I'll talk through after Bart gives his welcome and updates. Thank you all for joining us, and I will turn it over to the Federal Monitor, Bart Schwartz.
Thank you, Asha. I appreciate that. And thank you for the advice to be brief. I got the message. I have a couple of very interesting things to report to start with that I'm very pleased to report to everyone. And I am going to streamline what I had to say, because this is really a meeting for all of you to be talking about things and for me to be listening. And I don't want to hijack that time from you. It's very helpful time. But I'm delighted that the recertification procedure and program that NYCHA has undertaken, the early reports are that it's a success, and it all started with Nancy Ortiz explaining to us at our first CAC meeting about how cumbersome and difficult the process was. And it didn't really get jump-started until Eva Trimble joined the NYCHA team and attended the CAC meeting as a CAC member, as she does tonight. And she listened to what was being said, and everybody got organized and energized to try to make a change in the process and the portal that had been used. So a working group was established. It included NYCHA staff, a consultant provided by the mayor's office, residents and members of the monitors team to address the need for changes and to make suggestions for how the portal should be revised. As I said, we've gotten some early information already that people are pleased with the results, and I'm looking forward to see it being turned out for the entire portfolio. So I want to thank Nancy, Eva, Chief IT Officer Patty Bayros, who I think is not in this meeting, but was very helpful, and many others who worked to address this issue. And it's very interesting. It came out of the first CAC meeting, and it's something that is not anywhere mentioned in the HUD agreement, but the formation of this group led to something that I think will make life easier for many people. Another effort that we're undertaking to try to make life easier for residents and to be more effective is a resident ambassador program. This builds on a program that NYCHA already has, where resident ambassadors work with residents when there's remediation taking place and helping maintain their apartments. A major difference in the resident ambassador program that we're talking about is that it goes beyond only the work that vendors are doing. It also includes the work that NYCHA employees are doing. And this will be a way for the resident ambassadors to advise residents on proper preparation for remediation. You know, we all know when it comes to painting, it's all in the preparation, and that's true for many of the other services that are performed. And so these resident ambassadors will be there to help to residents and generally help them to maintain their apartments. In this program, I think Chuck Fax is here, and I know he's been leading our pest group, and this ambassador program will be a big help in remediation on the pest side, so that the remediation is effective and stays effective. So Chuck, I want to thank you for all the work that you've been putting in on this. The third thing I'd like to mention is something that has not happened yet, and we can think about it, and I want you to know that we're thinking about it. And again, I'll be brief, but there was a program that was put into place by NYCHA some years ago called the Safety Associate Program. And with all the discussions we hear about and we hear from residents about safety and security, we're going to take another look at this program and see if there's a way to breathe some more life into it and make it more effective, working with the safety and security unit at NYCHA, working with the police department and others who are trying to keep the development safe and secure. So those are the three programs I just wanted to mention. I'm sure if I'm true to form, I'll have plenty of comments during the meeting, but I am going to try to be listening as much as possible. I really thank all of you for your participation. I should have mentioned that Tamika Williams, who was on the CAC, is going to lead that ambassador program for us. So she's joined the NYCHA staff. Tamika, I'm sorry that I left that out. So let me turn it back to you, Asha, and to the members of the CAC, and get to the issues that they all want to talk about. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that update and welcome. Now I'll walk us through tonight's agenda. It is a robust and aggressive agenda, so thank you for your brevity. You have left us with 3 minutes ahead of your schedule. So next we're going to hear from our DYCD representative, Daryl Rattray, who will give us an update, and then remarks from our DFTA representative, Agnes Mack, and our NYCHA representatives, Eva Trimble and Nancy Ortiz, who will give us an update on that program that you just spoke about with the recertification process. We will hear remarks by resident representative Shakina Butler. Unfortunately, City Council member Alika Ampry Samuel just called with her regrets. She is stuck in City Council meetings, but she did want us to know that they will be having a hearing next week regarding pest and waste issues, which is really important, and we'll be discussing a bit today as well. Next, we will hear from a new member of our team, who I'll introduce later this evening, Katie Brennan, from the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development. And then we will hear from our Citywide Council of Presidents representative, Lilith Lozano, if she's on the line and able to join us. And then we'll hear from, we have NYFD and NYPD. Here we have Deputy Chief Kevin Brennan, who will give remarks, and Captain Elton Cohn, who's joined us for the evening. Thank you for being here. And then we'll hear more remarks, updates, and concerns from some more of our resident representatives, Mr. Manny Martinez, Mr. Robert Hall, and Mr. Joel Gross. And then I know there might be other member updates, just points of discussion, remarks, concerns. We will discuss those and then turn it over back to Bart Schwartz to close us out. So that's our meeting this evening. At the same time, while we are running a tight agenda, I definitely still want to have the opportunity to have discussion on different points as we go. So feel free to weigh in, ask questions, make comments as we go. We don't have to wait to the end of the meeting for the discussion portion. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Daryl.
Thank you, Asha, and good evening, everyone. Darrell Rattray. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Youth Services here at DYCD. Asha, thumbs up. You guys can hear me, right? No one's... Okay, perfect. Just want to double check. So before I get into summer programming and summer plans for the Cornerstone portfolio, you know, if we're going into the summer, that means we're closing out school year programming. So just one update. I think last time I updated on the learning labs that we opened up across the city. And of course, 76 of those were activated within our Cornerstone community centers. So just a huge round of applause and appreciation for the providers that stepped up for their communities, activated those learning labs, which became much needed resources for the families and the young people who utilize them. All learning labs across the city are going to end on June 25th. And we have 76 of the cornerstones that activate the learning labs. So now, as we move into summer 2021, which is going to be starkly different than last year, I need to start by saying we are opening the summer with 99 cornerstones. So that's 5 more sites than we had last year. The 5 additional sites are Marcy, Oceanside, Patterson, Mitchell, and Millbrook. So Marcy in Brooklyn, Oceanside, Far Rockaway, Patterson, Mitchell, and Millbrook in the South Bronx, which are all operating as cornerstones with the extended hours, services for all ages, etc. Also, this summer coming, we have 4 cornerstone sites that are going to be actually operating out of a school because the centers are under construction or renovations. That's Davidson, Unity Plaza, Ravenswood, and Hamel. So those are going to operate out of school buildings because those particular centers are being renovated or under some type of construction. So summer camp planning is on the way with all of our providers, all of our cornerstones. They're slated to operate from 8 to 6 p.m. summer camps. Camps will begin July 6th and operate through August 28th. In addition to the summer camp, traditional summer camp style programming, of course, cornerstones are operating extended hours in the summer. That means that all 99 locations, all of the 95 locations that are within the centers, 4 are going to be school-based for the summer, will operate 7 days a week until 11 p.m. during the summer months. So 7 days a week until 11 p.m. One of the elements that we are launching this July as well, and it's part of my backdrop, is the Saturday Night Lights program. So historically, Saturday Night Lights has operated at 20 locations throughout New York City. SNL provides a safe space for young adults to engage in enhanced sports activities from the hours of 5 to 9 p.m. That includes basketball, soccer, volleyball, music creation, the works. And it also provides a platform for positive interactions between cops and young adults throughout New York City. So starting this July, we're actually expanding Saturday Night Lights to 100 locations across the city. So a great number of those are going to be located within Cornerstones. We're actually finalizing the listing this week, and we're going to announce sometime next week which locations are going to be part of the 100 SNL locations throughout the city. Another update we had leading into the summer, we've been holding a series of trainings for resident council leaders. I may have mentioned this at one of the previous updates, but we actually launched and got started. These are for resident council leadership who may be interested in operating their own community centers or even applying for funding with the city. The first workshop was the city contracting process. It was about the city systems that we utilize and also about the Cornerstone RFP specifically. The second workshop we held was about the SAC, the school-age child care licensing process. And then there's a workshop happening on the 16th about our DYCD frameworks. So during that workshop, we're going to cover the different frameworks that we've provided and resources we provided for nonprofits, including our positive youth development framework, social and emotional learning, youth leadership, civic engagement, strategic partnerships, and family engagement frameworks that folks can use as a resource and as a tool as they plan any programming or anything that they may be involved in. And finally, I'm keeping it brief. Finally, we are holding a virtual job fair tomorrow from 12 to 4 p.m. So if anyone's interested in attending this virtual job fair, there's still time to register. Go to our website, www.nyc.gov/DYCD. And right on our homepage, you'll see the link to register for the virtual job fair. It's happening tomorrow from 12 to 4 p.m. So there's time to register, but you got to register now.
Thank you so much for those important updates from DYCD. We really appreciate that. It's a lot of great and exciting stuff happening this summer. Before we move on to Agnes at DYCD, I just wanted to see if there were any questions, comments, or anything we just heard. Okay, Agnes, you're up, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to let everybody know, perhaps you had already heard from the news, that the senior centers may be reopening on June 14, Monday. So the opening will be staggered, meaning that senior center providers will decide when they will want to open and what program and activities they would want to provide. Some are going to open first for activities, and others are going to open congregate meal service in addition to activities. So that's June 14. We're very excited about it. In the meantime, we also are providing a grab and go service for meals. As of today, we have 66 providers that are participating in grab and go. Today, we provided a total of 3,346 meals to 2,867 seniors. Some seniors did receive 2 meals because some of our sites are contracted for both breakfast and lunch, and therefore some seniors pick up 2 meals and some pick up 1, depending on what they are contracted for. So that's what I have for now.
Thank you so much, Agnes, for those important updates from DFDA. And now I want to turn it over to Eva Trimble from the Office of the Chair at NYCHA to give us some updates on what NYCHA has been working on to for summer readiness.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Asha, for this opportunity to speak. I will try to keep with the theme tonight and keep it short, but I have 3 topics I wanted to share and update everyone on tonight. The first is very exciting announcement that in-person family days are returning to NYCHA this summer. I know how important these events are to our NYCHA community, and we're so excited to be able to bring them back this summer. NYCHA's Family Day Task Force convened in May, and it's comprised of CCOP members, resident leaders, resident engagement, NYPD, Office of Security, and our environmental health and safety, so that we can really work together to plan out a safe and fun event. We are working to issue guidelines for how to run these events, and we are conducting orientation sessions for resident leaders to learn more about these requirements. Family Day packets were distributed to all the resident leaders completing the orientation, and the deadline for returning the packet, which includes the application for TPA funding and the application to hold the family day, it's all due back Friday, June 25th. And there's a lot of information in there. Please reach out to resident engagement if you have questions, because we really want to make sure that these are safe and fun events for our families. So very excited to announce that tonight. The next is about elevator readiness. Most people are pretty familiar with heat season and the preventative work we do before heat season. But what a lot of people don't know is that actually summer is elevator season, because most of our elevator failures are due to overheating of the elevator systems. And that happens obviously in the summer. So we are doing and have been doing maintenance in order to get ready for summer. And that includes ensuring all newly installed cooling units are serviced and operating. We're managing with our staff to ensure that we have additional staff on board for the summer and coordinating extra hours for our elevator staff. We're working closely to make sure all of our vehicles for elevator staff are ready to go at all hours. We know that there's, obviously ties into electricity and making sure that we have everything running for our elevators. So been working really hard on that and wanted to share some of those updates. And then finally, I wanted to update and clarify NYCHA's role regarding cooling centers, and really to reinforce that all of the cooling centers are run by New York City and New York City's Office of Emergency Management. Many of those cooling centers are within NYCHA properties and coordinated with our city partners here on the call, DFTA and DYCD. But NYCHA is not directly involved in opening or closing or running any of those cooling centers. Obviously, they're in our buildings, so we have some coordination when we're brought in. But if you have questions about the cooling centers, definitely reach out. If you're a resident, reach out to 311. And for our city partners on the call, we just wanted to reinforce for everyone that this is an OEM or Office of Emergency Management initiative and not NYCHA. We're somewhat out of the cooling center business this year. So we just wanted to provide those quick updates. Happy to take any questions, Asha, if you want to have the time for that.
Thank you for those updates. I want to open the floor. Are there any questions, comments on that? Okay, Nancy, also now with NYCHA, I was hoping you can update us on some of the work on the recertification process. Ms. Ortiz, please unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
My mouse has a mind of its own. First, I want to say thank you to everyone that participated in this venture. It was a little difficult in the beginning, but once we got it rolling, it started to streamline a lot easier. And I've gotten feedback from a lot of the residents that they like the larger lettering, the bigger pictures, the fact that you can stop and then come back and begin where you ended, as opposed to starting all over again. And that you can actually download the documents for each individual family member when you're on the portal, as opposed to doing every family member, and then at the end, you have to download each and every document. So it's a much easier and a much more streamlined process now. I think that all thoughts and comments were taken into consideration, and we came up, I'm not gonna say me, all I did was yap about it. Everybody else was the one that really put the blood, sweat, and tears into it. And they did an amazing job. All I can say is I just spoke and they did. So, thank you, Eva. I thank the team. I thank the mayor's office, and I thank all the participants and the CBOs that were on each and every call giving their input. And Tyrese from Ingersoll, I have to give him his shout out too. So far, so good. Well, we'll see when, we go into full swing and everybody's doing their recertifications at the same time.
Well, certainly having a process that's more user-friendly is something that everyone is going to welcome. Thank you for your hard work on that. Are there any questions, thoughts, comments before we continue? Okay.
I had actually one question. With the way the rollout was done, if I correct, it's was two stages. Eva, maybe you could correct me. There was a small test, and now there's been a larger rollout, but it's not the whole rollout. But this second phase is also seems to be working well.
Yes, well, I can clarify that we did a soft launch with 2 developments and about 250 Section 8 residents during the spring. We are technically fully launched now. However, not all residents recertify at the same time. There's segments of recertification due dates. So I think it's either quarterly or maybe 3 dates throughout the year. So we have maybe a third going through it right now, only because that's all that's due right now. and then another third. So everyone won't be through it for a full year, and then we'll really have a full sense of how it worked.
Right. And there was
It's fully
extensive,
launched.
yeah.
Yeah.
there was extensive resident involvement in all the stages up to including the soft launch and still today, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been, we call it a co-design process where we've really designed all of it in partnership with the residents.
That's good. That's a good update. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Ortiz. And thank you, Ms. Trumbull, for weighing in. Next, I want to turn to Ms. Shakina Butler from Staten Island. I know you had a couple of questions, concerns, remarks you wanted to make, particularly around as we get moving into the summer months, pest and waste concerns, AWS concerns, staffing, lighting issues, development surveys, et cetera. If you could talk to some of those concerns, please, Ms. Butler.
Good evening, everyone. As Asha stated, I did have some questions. One being our lighting situation. We have not converted over to LED as of yet. It's very dark on the development grounds at night, which is a safety concern for not only the residents, but our NCOs who are here in the evening. Also, the AWS schedule, because our buildings it's gotten worse. Summer is here. We know what happens in the summer. We get the pests. We got garbage piling up. We have a new, I can't call it a container, but it's a new section that was placed in front of my building that we're trying out. And I assumed that we were going to put a container in that section and not just a blockage from the street. Because all it is like a 3 metal pieces put together to block off you seeing the garbage from the street area. But now that section is full of garbage. It's an eyesore and it's causing fly problem. A big fly problem, especially for the residents on the first floor, because that's where they're going. Also, I'm worried about rats. I'm worried about possums, because we do have those out here in Staten Island. And when you have open garbage like that, is a cause for another issue. I spoke to our superintendent, and she said that she would have the caretaker wash it down weekly. But then that's taking the caretaker away from policing. It's taking the caretaker away from taking the garbage out of the building. So, and then on top of that, not having enough staff within our developments. We're very short staffed, and I feel like we've gotten to a point where either this AWS schedule needs to go or we need more staffing, and at different intervals of the day. They do come back when they can, but now you have more people out and about, and urine in the elevators, feces on the stair halls. It's just too much going on. My next thing was to piggyback off of Ms. Trumbull with the elevator maintenance. We are doing that as of June 8th and 9th, and then the 11th and the 14th for our development. So thank you for that. We have gas line checks going on next week as well, to make sure that the gas is flowing through each building correctly. They also told me that they'll have crock pots and hot plates just in case anybody has any issues. And last thing is to thank you guys for the updated system. That system is amazing. I've been doing our senior residents annual reviews, and I've been showing them how to do it on their own, which they're finding it much more easier to navigate through that system. So I do appreciate you guys for that. It has been a blessing. And that is it.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. You hit a lot of important points. I know that Ms. Ortiz had some concerns with garbage as well that you wanted to highlight as it relates to the summer months, and thinking through how best to approach pest and waste issues or lack thereof. If you wanted to piggyback off Ms. Butler, please.
So one of the issues that we're having is sanitation is not picking up. in timely manners. The second issue that we are having is the container that they placed. It's only one container, and it's not satisfying the daily garbage. So the development has to take garbage in the truck to another development. And if that development has a full bin, then the garbage comes back and it's put on the side of the container.
Wow.
Sanitation has been coming at 11 p.m. to pick up the container, and then comes back at between 4 and 5 in the morning to drop off the container. So can you imagine the noise that's making? The container is placed behind 8 buildings. And from the first floor to the 6th floor, you hear everything. So that's becoming a quality of life issue, because, you know, it's waking people up. And we're fearing for the rats. We're starting to fear that we're going to get more rats. There's also a 30-yard container that has to be constantly shoved side to side in order to get the garbage container out. So it's this was not a good fit for Vellatic houses because of how the development is the demographic of the development, and because of how close the windows are to everything, and it's also behind a park as well. So it's you know, the residents, that they think I did it and they're furious with me. Okay, so I don't know what to tell them. I honestly don't know what to say to them. But
Yeah, and you both hit a couple of important points. One, just NYCHA readiness, because we all know the rodent problem tends to be exacerbated in the summer. Two, NYCHA's already accepted that AWS isn't working as planned, but have there been alternate staffing or programs put in place to address those gaps and known deficiencies? And then three, you know, even the waste management practices as they are they really in the best interest of the development and the residents and their windows and all of those things? So thank you for highlighting those many important points. And that's why we also had Chuck Fax join to listen in on that and have Eva taking notes to bring back as well.
I saw Chuck
concerns.
I saw Chuck taking notes also, and we'll definitely take a look at this. Definitely.
Just to piggyback on what I said, I'm sorry.
No, excuse me. I just wanted to ask, Ms. Butler, on Staten Island, which development were you referring to?
West Brighton.
West Brighton, yeah. I go to West Brighton a lot. Serious problems there, serious. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And was it a different property, Nancy, that you were referring to?
It's the property I was referring to as Vellatic Houses.
Yeah,
and
I have that.
I just wanted to piggyback that where they put the container is the same site that every year they set it on fire. So before we had a problem with garbage fire, now we're going to have a problem with not only garbage fire, but electrical fire. And we're concerned
and these problems are pervasive, not just these two developments. Obviously, we hear about these problems over and over. So thank you for that. I now want to take a moment to introduce Katie Brennan, who's new to our CAC. She's replacing Jody Callender from the mayor's office, specifically the deputy mayor's office, Vicki Bean. So I wanted to ask her to introduce herself. Tell us more about the work that you're doing, and then also update us on some of the initiatives that are going on.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Since there's fewer people walking by, I'm gonna pull this down just for when I'm speaking to you all. Like Asha said, my name is Katie Brennan. I joined Deputy Mayor Bean's team in April, so I'm pretty new. I've listened in on some of these more public meetings, but I'm thrilled to be joining you all tonight. So I have two updates from the city and state side, and they're both resources that NYCHA residents can apply for. The first is ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and that is made possible by COVID emergency funds from the federal government in one of the federal COVID bills. And what it does is it can pay up to a year of rental arrears as well as a year of utility payments. So this is an eligible household, is anybody who's below 80% AMI, which is really most people in our NYCHA family. And it is available online right now. I will share the link. It is operated through OTDA, which is the state. And in the coming days, there's going to be additional information shared from NYCHA on how best to assist tenants with this process. I'm remiss that not all the details are available tonight, but we need some additional guidance from the state. But again, I will share the link in the chat as well as the hotline for completing the application, because that is open now. Again, up to a year of rental arrears and a year of utility payments if you've been impacted by COVID. You know, it's been a really, really tough year for many. The second is a broadband initiative. So I know that there's been several internet announcements over the past couple years, and again, COVID taught us many, many things, but one of them is how critical internet access is. Look at us all on this virtual meeting right now. And so at nyc.gov/broadband benefit, again, I'll share that with the whole group. Qualified New York City residents can receive a temporary discount on current or new monthly broadband subscription. It's first come, first serve, so please get out there and apply. Residents can get $50 a month for broadband service, equipment, or device rentals, as well as $100 towards buying a laptop, tablet, or desktop computer. So if folks need some new equipment or want to get a reduction on their internet bill or sign up for the first time, there are funds available. It's a short-term emergency subsidy program coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this builds upon some of the internet master planning that the city has been doing, as well as making broadband connectivity at some specific NYCHA building sites. So I will share both of those in the chat, and you can pass along to all of your networks. Are there any questions about either of those programs?
Great, thank you so
Okay.
much, Brennan. And now I'd like to turn it over to FDNY to give us some updates. And I know you've been doing a lot of important work looking into the key fob issue, and I'm hoping you can update us on that as well as any other initiatives from the fire department.
Thanks, Asha. Good evening, everybody. A couple of quick updates from us. First, to let you know that the FDNY is also participating in one of the new mayor's initiatives to get small businesses back up and running as quick as possible through SPS. It's like a concierge type service to expedite the reopening. And we are involved with that, as well as many other city agencies. So we're doing our part there, which is basically affects all our communities throughout the city, right? Other thing, more specific to NYCHA, right? We're trying to reduce the damage we cause when we respond to an emergency in NYCHA buildings. One thing we are doing is we set up a notification process for any drills that field companies may want to do at the locations, where we have a point of contact in NYCHA. We're going to email them a date and a time, and in that particular date, we're going to actually follow up with a phone call. So people at NYCHA are going to know we're on the location, and obviously we're not going to cause any damage while we're there, but just to keep NYCHA aware of what we're doing and in the loop, and it will cause less issues. The other thing with the key fobs, we're basically going to revamp the entire program. Chief Thompson's been doing an excellent job working under me, speaking with representatives at NYCHA. We have a single point of contact, which is him now in the department as far as distributing the keys. Long story short, we're actually giving all the keys and stages back to NYCHA to get reprogrammed and then reissued to us. Every line unit is going to receive several keys. The local fire battalions will have a key and spares. The whole point is that the objective is that the unit will never be without a key. So any unit showing up at the location will have a key to access the building, whether they're relocated or they're the normal first due companies in that area. And that we feel it'll be additional cost in the short term with NYCHA for outfitting all of our units with keys, but with the estimates of damage that we've received, that NYCHA has informed us that these doors are very expensive to maintain and repair, right, if we cause damage to them. The key cost is much smaller than the cost of repair, if they get damaged. So we're going to outfit all our units with keys, like I said, and have backups, etc. So we should be in very good shape going forward. And, probably in the next 6 months or so, that no unit will show up without one of these key fobs and be able to get in, which will reduce obviously the damage, getting in and out of these buildings in case of an emergency. My experience with my time on the job, a lot of times just people right there to let us in. Even before these magnetic doors came into existence, there's always people in the courtyard area or whatever, where if we had an emergency, there was plenty of people hanging around to open the door for us, and there wasn't a lot of issues, but it does happen. So that's about it from the fire department perspective for now.
Yeah.
Any
Chief
questions?
Brennan, this is Bart. Yeah, I forgot. And I don't know whether we've been in contact with you about this one issue I want to raise, but it's the misuse of the fireman's key by residents who are controlling the elevators by using a key that they're not supposed to have. And we've been gathering information on the number of buildings that a number of outages have been caused by the misuse of the key, which were senior buildings, which might only have one elevator. And I'd like to make sure that we talk to you, see what statistics you have, and then we have some ideas about how to maybe minimize the problem or reduce the problem. Because I don't know if everybody knows this, but when you use the key and you go to the floor you want to go to, you leave the elevator, you take the key with you, and that elevator is out of service. So then you have to have a repair group come in. They have to analyze what the problem is. Meanwhile, they could be repairing another elevator that really had a breakdown or something. So we've had a lot of complaints about it. It seems like the kind of thing we could and should be able to reduce at least the impact of the misuse of these keys. And I just wanted to give you a heads up. If we haven't already spent time with you, expect a phone call. Okay.
No, certainly call, reach out to me. Are you speaking more of when either private maintenance or NYCHA maintenance is using the elevators to do some work or something?
No.
You're talking about fire department.
No, I'm talking about residents having keys they shouldn't have.
Well, that's a problem. I mean, it's a standard. The elevator industry has standard keys for those elevators. Like we use a fireman service key, which is, it gives the same access, but it's a little different key, but it works in that cylinder. And I could basically use that key in any, NYCHA building in the city. It's going to work the elevator. It's a standard key.
Right.
And
That's the advantage, and that's the problem.
Yes, and if it's a question of whoever has whoever's been issued these keys has to keep it obviously better security on them, and that
You can buy them on the internet. We've already checked.
Yeah, and they're on eBay too. Yeah, yep. And we've seen fire department, which is we call it a 1620 key, The industry elevator key is a 2642 key, but I've seen them both actually on eBay for sale. So that is a problem. I'm certainly open to discussion to speak with you how we can improve that and make it better. Certainly.
We have some ideas and it would be helpful.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you. And also thank you for the important work on the key fob issue, because when this was an issue that we first started talking about here at the CAC, because we've heard from so many residents who are upset about the damage to the doors, and a way to get around that and making sure that every unit has ready access to the door is critical. So thank you for really fleshing out this important issue and making sure that every unit gets outfitted appropriately. That's really critical. So that's really good news update, and something that was born right here in the CAC. So we're proud to see that forward momentum on that important initiative. Next, I wanted to turn to, we're really fortunate to have a special guest replacing Howard Gottesman this evening, Captain Elton Cohn, who's had many years on the department and who's also representing PSA 1 and 2. So thank you for joining us this evening, particularly on short notice. And if you could please introduce yourself and then also give us any updates, particularly as it relates to summer readiness for NYPD and any pertinent statistics that you want us to be aware of right now. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Captain Elton Cohn. I am currently the executive officer for PSA 1. I am also the covering CO and XO for PSA 2. Both of these areas cover a portion of Brooklyn. I'd like to say thank you for having me. I'd like to acknowledge Chief Barrere, Chief Nelson, my borough commander, Inspector Lance, and of course my CO, Captain Rogers, who's the CO of PSA 1. I have 24 years on the police department. I have a master's degree from John Jay in public administration, and I am a Brooklyn resident and Brooklyn boy through and through. A little unknown history about me is that I actually grew up in NYCHA. I went to elementary school, junior high school, and eventually joined the police department. And eventually I moved out, but I grew up in NYCHA, so I was one of those young men running around playing football and in the basketball courts and enjoying all of the things that NYCHA had to offer. And it's actually exciting to be back working in the area, being at one point as a resident, and just understanding the ins and outs of the residents that live in NYCHA, because I was one of them. I'm going to give you a little brief overview of our statistics for the Housing Bureau overall statistics. I'm going to do that in a year-to-date fashion. So everything we have as of year-to-date in what we call the 7 major statistics, which is the 7 major crimes. In the murder category, we're up 60%, which is 37 versus 23. In the rape category, we're up 58 versus 57, which is a 1.8% increase. In the robbery category, we're down 14.8%, which is 310 versus 364. In the felony assault category, we're up 12.3%, which is 932 versus 830. In the burglary category, we're up 4.3%, which is 169 versus 162. In the grand larceny category, we're up 511 versus 402, which is an increase of 27.1%. In the grand larceny of an auto, we're up 74 versus 58, which is an increase of 27.6%. In regards to the violence in the Housing Bureau, shooting victims, we have 106 shooting victims versus 78 last year, which is an increase of 35.9%. Shooting incidents, we're at 95 versus 70, so that we're up 35.7% in shooting incidents. And rape 1 is 47 versus 41, which is an increase of 14.6%. If you'd like, I'll go over PSA 1 and PSA 2's statistics, which I basically cover. For the year to date for PSA 1, we're even 5 versus 5 in the murder category, 6 versus 5 in the rape category, which is a 20% increase. We're down in the robbery, 36%, 16 versus 25. Felony assault is 110 versus 73, which is a 50% increase. Burglary, 22 versus 10, which is a 120% increase. Grand larceny, 37 versus 40, which is a decrease of 7.5. Grand larceny of an auto, 8 versus 3, which is a 166.7 increase. The shooting victims, we are at 12 versus 7, which is 71.4% increase. Shooting incidents are 11 versus 7, which is 57.1 increase. Rape 1, 5 versus 3, which is a 66.7 increase. For PSA 2 right now, which I am currently covering as the CO until the CO gets chosen, murder is 6 versus 4. That's a 50% increase. Rape is 12 versus 10, which is a 20% increase. Robbery is 39 versus 56, which is a 30% decrease. Felony assault is 132 versus 128, which is a 3.9% increase. Burglary, 29 versus 21, which is a 38% increase. Grand larceny, 59 versus 39, which is a 51% increase. And grand larceny of an auto is 11 versus 12, which is a decrease of 8%. The shooting victims in PSA 2 is 18 versus 13, which is a 38% increase. The shooting incidents are 16 versus 13, which is a 23% increase. And rape is 9 versus 8, 12.5% increase. I was asked to speak about a situation in the Coney Island community in regards to a community center and in regards to the Haber House food pantry. Do we have anybody from the Coney Island community on the call, on the Zoom?
We have the representatives from DYCD here who's been working closely with the community center.
Okay, beautiful.
And also from the Department for the Aging, we have a senior center on site.
DIFTA.
Okay, beautiful. So then I'm just going to basically make this an overall. So basically, we had an increase in burglaries in a specific area that houses a food pantry and a senior center. Some of the ways that we've looked to make sure that doesn't happen again is we sent out our NCOs, which is the neighborhood coordinating officers. We sent out our community affairs officer, and we sent out our crime prevention officers. And what they've been doing is they survey the specific area to make sure that there isn't any vulnerabilities. And of course, if we can shore up those vulnerabilities. So working along with the manager of that specific development or that specific area, we work to make sure we can prevent that burglary from reoccurring. Obviously, on the police department end, in this particular area in the 6-0, we had a known recidivist who specifically had a NYCHA universal key, sort of like the elevator key that we just talked about. And he was literally able to enter into a lot of places he wasn't able to, he wanted to, and remove certain food and certain items. So what we did was, because obviously we can't really get rid of that key because it services so many NYCHA areas, is when you have this situation arising, we put an extra padlock on that door. All right. And obviously, we are sealing windows and conferring with managers of construction sites to make sure that we seal and contain the problem as much as possible so we could get rid of the vulnerabilities. On that recidivist, I'd like to say that he was arrested twice by our police officers. The universal key was removed from his person and submitted into evidence, so he no longer has it. He definitely is a very crafty person and he uses tools to get in. That's why we've worked on making sure we secure these areas in a particular manner where it is a lot harder to enter. Unfortunately, he was released without bail and he's back out. So what we look to do is we monitor every movement that he has, and every time he gets in trouble, which he has gotten into small amounts of trouble, And if we can basically reinitiate the original burglary and see if we can have him put in prior to his court date so that he doesn't commit more burglaries. He's actually done enough damage in the Coney Island area that it's created a spike. But we are all aware of who he is. We all are on top of him and trying to make sure that he doesn't continue doing what he's doing. As far as the senior center, we requested that they had a camera issue where the cameras inside the senior center weren't working. And we requested and we're working to get those cameras back up and running. The last thing is there was a lot of internal communication between the people that ran the food pantry and the people that are running the community center between themselves and housing management about particular burglaries that had happened without reporting them to us. We specifically request that if you feel like you had a burglary, to dial 911 and please let the officers respond. There's a lot of things that we can do, like take fingerprints, review video, and voucher tools for evidence that might be left behind so that we can basically pursue this person in regards to the burglary. If you wait or you do it through an internal means and then it gets to us a specific time later, we may lose that camera footage. And of course, the fingerprints will be no good. And any other DNA evidence or evidence that was on the scene 2, 3, 4 weeks later is definitely going to be destroyed. So if you feel that you have a burglary, please dial 911 and please allow us to respond so we can gather this stuff in a timely manner. We really would appreciate it. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you for those updates. I do have a question. What is NYPD doing to increase security presence for the summer months?
Okay, so we definitely, based on our statistics where crime is happening, we definitely look to rotate and put more personnel in the specific areas as we see certain things growing. Obviously, with the family days coming back and barbecues and whatever else occurs, there's basketball games. There's a lot of internal communication where we're basically making sure that the right amount of police officers are there for the size of the crowd. We're currently in talks with the NYCHA and through our department in regards to the family days to make sure we coordinate this effort so that everybody could be safe during that time. So ultimately, you know, everybody here on the meeting, if you are aware of a vigil, a basketball game, a celebration, or something negative that might have a large amount of people that show up and there would be a need for police presence, please feel free to call the precinct or the PSA that's local to you and let them know, speak to your NCOs and your community affairs people, and we'll make adjustments accordingly. And we really appreciate it if you would do that.
So important. Any other questions, concerns?
I would like to just thank the captain for all of his efforts, and obviously the food pantry program is very much needed for the neighborhood residents, and having these burglaries is just insult to hurt people who need the food. So thank you very much for helping secure the senior center. I will communicate what you reported tonight to the senior center provider and encourage them to file a police report whenever something happens, and hopefully it won't happen anymore. But thank you very much for your efforts.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, if you need us, we're here for you always.
Thank you. And of course, safety and security issues are top of mind for all NYCHA residents. So thank you for giving us an important update for the important work that NYPD does. Next, I wanted to turn it to Mr. Manny Martinez, who raised a number of concerns that we wanted to talk through. And so I will hand the floor to you, please, Mr. Martinez.
Good evening. Thank you, Asha, and good evening to everybody who is on the call tonight and to everybody who's watching. I would like to preface my comment tonight with the fact that there are many great people who work for NYCHA, that I've had the pleasure of working with, that we've collaborated and were able to resolve many issues. But the context of my comment is based off of something that has been ignored throughout this whole process. And there has been a focus on the structural repair, the much needed structural repair, and we are definitely grateful for that. But the oversight, the lack of oversight, comes to a something that was publicly not made aware of. And it was actually in the complaint that was filed against NYCHA that resulted from the investigation that led to the complaint, in which there was an official training manual on how to deceive HUD. That indicates a specific workplace culture, a corrupt workplace culture that works against the residents. This type of workplace culture is so toxic that it has endangered a person's health, children's health, and even caused people to lose their lives. This particular workplace culture has not been addressed, and it's still pervasive throughout the housing authority. And the lack of this is what's causing much concern and what's causing a lot of obstruction to what would be great strategies of implementation. For instance, the lack of accountability on local management for management per local development is sorely lacking. We have a lot of collaboration at the higher levels between executives and executive staffs with the NYPD or other external agencies. But when it comes down, when we begin to break down the structure of how NYCHA is formatted management-wise, at the local level, there isn't any accountability. There isn't any discussion. A lot of the issues that are at the local level tends to stay at the local level. I know that there's been an organizational plan that's been mandated along with the agreement, but, and I will use this analogy, if you have dirty water in an old bucket and you give me a new bucket and you put the same dirty water in a new bucket, we still have the same problem. Now, I see that lack of accountability at the local level and how it impacts our community specifically, where there is a lack of communication. We have for example, compactors that go out and off and on for a year, no communication with the residents, no proper handling of that particular circumstance. And if it's not someone like myself who comes around and brings attention to it, then it goes untreated and ignored and neglected. This type of workplace culture is also impacting how contractors who come onto the development grounds, how they engage with the households and the communities here. They tend to be arrogant and they tend to be heavy-handed in the manners that they choose to engage our community. For example, currently we have a roofing project that's going on. After being asked not to place trailers in a particular location because of the current circumstance of that location with trespassers and the endangerment, the increased endangerment of the community, because it benefited them, they did it anyway. And now it created a whole nother area in which trespassers are now utilizing an area that has never been utilized in that capacity before. Another example of that, and this is something that was seen throughout NYCHA and many residents, with this lead inspection, where communications were improperly delivered to households, not with enough time frame, with the threat of home invasion. 48 hours, a 48-hour notice, sometimes delivered the day before, with the threat of them drilling out your door and not taking into account particular responsibilities of the residents. And the manner in which those communications were delivered were in complete violation of public policy. And mind you, the NYCHA lease, or the public housing lease across the country, is the only lease that I'm aware of that is regulated by HUD, by federal regulations. And in that, it says specifically to make those types of communications with the households, either via first-class mail or directly with the household, the head of household or someone 18 or over on a lease, they would slide those on the doors. I've heard from other developments where managers would put somebody's personal note and put it on the lobby, where there's somebody's specific address and information, and they would put that up on the lobby and act as if that was fair warning for everyone. And thirdly is, and it piggybacks, and it's a segue in regards to contractors and how Reese is complicit, not only Reese, but NYCHA is complicit in Section 3 neglect, right? Where you have contract, when you bring up Section 3 issues via policy and cite the section in policy that's being referred to, what they respond to you with is, and I'm speaking in regards to contractors, they'll say, oh, we deal with Reese. I've had conversations with Reese where they're not familiar with the policy themselves, and I have to educate them on the policy, and then they become combative or resistant. And this is some huge issues, especially Section 3, especially how much value is being stolen from our communities at the expense of, I mean, not at this, at the behest of contractors who would rather not engage in that policy and NYCHA's complicity thereof. And so I strongly believe, and forgive me, I think I had an issue there. I strongly believe that the federal monitor, when we look at line 53 of the agreement, the consultation portion of compliance needs to be stronger. There needs to be a stronger partnership or collaboration in regards to launching these compliance departments and ensuring that the actual accountability that's required in order to correct these commonplace issues are being properly addressed. And so,
thank you, Mr.
May I
Martinez.
say something?
Yes, go ahead.
First, we were pleased, Mr. Martinez, that you wanted to be on the CAC, and I continue to be pleased, and I thank you for your comments. Changing culture takes some time, but that's an excuse you can use for just so long. The biggest problem is accountability, because it really weaves through all the things you talked about. But it's accountability and oversight. There has to be a structure so that people are held accountable by whoever their supervisor is, or the supervisor's supervisor, and that takes time to build. And the organizational plan that we're working on through the implementation plan that is being drafted now for the Southern District and for the U.S. Attorney's Office and HUD, and for the monitor, we are very much focused on accountability as opposed to just responsibility. Responsibility, maybe do your job, but accountability is, if people are not doing their jobs, who's watching, who's trying to fix that? And it cuts across most of what you said. So I want you to know that that is a very high priority. You're right, and it's a very high priority for us. And unfortunately, over the years, the culture at NYCHA has changed. It wasn't always that way. The culture at NYCHA has changed, and NYCHA was accepting of failure. In fact, failure often resulted in getting resources. So failure was being rewarded. That's not what any of us want to see today. That I'm not saying we've solved the problem, but working with the current administration, which has the same attitude, they expect the work to get done, and they're trying to figure out different ways to do it, and looking at some experiments in how to do it. And I know that unfortunately, the first major experiment was AWS, but the effort was there to try to get more done with the resources that are available. everybody knows there's a limitation on the resources. That's not an excuse. You still got to get the work done. So we'll continue to focus on that. We'll continue to talk with you. I'd like to hear some more things. The vendors, by the way, it doesn't matter vendor or employee. It's still a matter of accountability and oversight, and we need to focus on that.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Did anyone else want to weigh in on those comments, particularly as it relates to accountability and oversight? Eva?
Thank you, Asha. Yes, and I did want to thank you, Bart, for your comments, because you covered some of the points I wanted to make, and I will confirm that we have many, many hours of conversations about accountability and culture of service and some of the problems that you raised. I'm not going to deny that they've existed, but I do want to say that I believe in the last almost 2 years, we have made tremendous progress in addressing some of the issues that you've raised, especially due to the work of Dan Green, our Chief Compliance Officer, and the Compliance, Environmental Health and Safety, and Quality Assurance departments working together to really address some of those issues that you've raised. They're working now on on-site monitoring reports and really holding developments accountable for preparing corrective action plans for faults that they find when they go out on compliance visits. We have done extensive training specifically on FOS preparations, which is where some of the original issues were that you raised. The training on FOS has been tremendous, and I really do believe we've made a lot of progress. I'm not going to deny that we have a lot more to do, but we recognize those faults and we are working to get there. So looking forward to working more with you going forward on it.
Thank you for those comments. And it's important to hear that NYCHA is really taking seriously the issues of accountability and oversight and working on those. And I know that Dan Green is doing a lot of work in this regard in the compliance department. So next I wanted to turn it over to two more of our resident representatives who wanted to talk about some of their concerns around summer readiness, Mr. Hall and Mr. Gross, with 5 minutes to each to close us out. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Asha. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what was just stated. Mr. Martinez did an excellent job. That transparency on a local level is urgently necessary as it lends itself to what was just discussed. And Ms. Trimble, I'm going to contact you offline, but the circumstances that exist, it has an overbearing effect on the way things are and on the way things need to be in order to be progressive. Okay, so I just want to comment on that very briefly. All right, but I will contact you, Ms. Trimble. As far as the summer DYCD months are forthcoming in the centers, the marketing of jobs for youth leaves a lot to be desired at this point. And I'm hearing this from a lot of residents based on what they've done previously. I don't know why, but then I believe I do know why, because things have shifted. All right. I myself had an event this past Saturday with a lot of church organizations, and it was quite successful. And I explained to my residents, they allowed a lot of churches as far away as Staten Island to come onto the premises of Gun Hill, and they did an excellent job. All right. And we called it a Hope Day. And it brought out a lot of people, and we were quite successful, at least to this point, because I haven't heard anybody complaining. But in any event, it was the first event of the summer, and I was very happy that it happened here, and nothing has gone wrong, and everyone helped everyone. So I was very happy about that. But on the other hand, I'm a chairman of a housing committee on the community board. And in my district, there are 4 housing developments, of which I'm one. And as we speak right this moment, I am the only development that has not gone into PAC or red. Now, that is not why we're on this tube. However, this is a magnificent issue that we're attempting to address in many formats. And I understand the monitor's position, all right, because I've been around for quite some time. But that being said, the lives of residents as we know it today are going through a transformation in and of itself. And it's a free fall because technically speaking, we are still in a pandemic. We're not totally out of the woods, but we're doing all we can. And it's very important that all of these matters that are being said, all right, that transparency prevails at all levels. What's missing now is the local level. And I'm very happy that we can have this discussion at this level, but we have to go back. I don't know, it probably encounters sensitivity training and things of that nature, but at all levels, transparency must be maintained. All right, in order for all of our lives, what we're trying to do to be successful, that's the key word. Now, every other word has been said, but transparency is urgently necessary.
Thank you for highlighting that, Mr. Hall. Transparency really is key. And to Mr. Martinez's point, really getting it, down to the local development, making sure that there's a transparency, particularly with the resident leaders at the development, and everyone seeing and knowing what's going on. I want to acknowledge that Ms. Lozano has also joined us. I know, Ms. Lozano, you had a number of conflicting meetings, so we thank you for joining us. And we will circle back to your place on the agenda at the end of Mr. Gross's statements. Mr. Gross? Please unmute.
Good afternoon, Asha, and good afternoon, the Federal Monitor,
Good
for
afternoon.
everybody. I will talk about the topic about safety. We all should be prepared and be safety as the summer approaching. Number one concern, as we all live in NYCHA in tall buildings, one of the main topics is we have issues always with the elevator system. The elevator is too hot when it's like above 85 or 90. We have a lot of outages. So one of the last couple of years NYCHA was doing, first of all, number one, they installed a lot of exhaust systems in the elevator room, as well AC units. So we have to make sure both is on, the exhaust systems and the AC. If this is on, we're gonna be lucky the entire summer. Number two, we have to make sure the exhaust inside in the elevator is on. A couple of years ago, for years, we was having issues with the exhaust systems. God forbid if somebody gets stuck in the summer, or people with asthma is a real problem if the exhaust from the elevator is not working. We have, as of now in the COVID-19, our community centers was closed. And right now it's going to be open for our kids. We have to make sure the water fountain is working. And as well, the water sprinklers outside on the street to make sure is a proper, and right now, not by July and August when really we need it. We should be prepared for it. I would like to talk right now about the topic on the Family Day. As we all know, we right now, by the end of the COVID-19, we hope so. And right now we have a different issue at the crime rate is up all over, in particular in the NYCHA developments. As maybe everybody knows, in Marcy Houses 2 years ago, by the Family Day was a shooting and a lot of people was injured. There was a large crowd. The issues what we have in Family Days, a lot of people from different developments or just from streets around communities is joining our Family Days. And a lot of times is positive, but a lot of times, unfortunately, In 2019, we have a lot of negative family days. So we have to be extra cautious by the family days right now. In a lot of plans, since I'm on Community Board 1 public housing in Brooklyn and Community Board 1, so we came up with a deal with a couple TA presidents. So we always, number one, the safety and security should be number one. That means we have to make sure we're gonna have police presence. Our PSA knows about it. In Brooklyn right now, in mine area is PSA 3. And then most of the development has other local precinct. In mine area is 90 precinct. So everybody, the law enforcement knows about it. As well, instead of finishing, having it on a weekend late, finishing 7, 8, 9 o'clock, that's the worst time when we start seeing a lot of hangouts, a lot of unwanted guests is mixing in with our development. So we came out in a plan 2 years ago, let's finish by daylight, 6 p.m. We're gonna turn off if we have music 5 an hour before, so residents should know we're preparing to close down. And by 6 p.m. we should make sure we should talk to the parents and to the community. If we are in a specific playground, let's have a policy to empty up the playground by 6:30. That way we will have very safe family day. In 2019, after we have a couple shootings, I communicate with our PSA 3. I was having a back to school event for family day inside in our community center. For the safety for all the residents, we prepare tickets for all the kids and the families who has a kids or so the adults, the entire family was in the community center. We was doing it inside. A lot of times do it inside in a center, and you have fully control. You have a lot of volunteers. You have the police officers. A lot of times it's safer. And also right now is the time when our residents can apply for the summer jobs now in our development. And I think all resident association presidents should push to make sure we're having a lot of residents who's capable to apply for the job to take advantage from that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gross. And thank you for sharing some of the tips that have worked to keep your development safe for Family Day. I know we're all excited that Family Day can happen again this year. And you raised important points for summer readiness about the elevators and the exhaust systems. And I know the elevator teams were paying close attention to all of those concerns. I now want to turn to Ms. Lilith Lozano. I know you have a number of concerns that you wanted to highlight as well as we talk about summer readiness and other concerns. So please, Ms. Lozano, the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes to close us out. Ms. Lozano, you're on mute.
I apologize. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to make it short and sweet. Good evening to everybody. And I apologize for my lateness. I just have a lot of conflicting scheduling because of CCOP and because of talking to attorneys. We're elated over the blueprint. However, what I've been doing is that I'm going to my respective districts and speaking to the resident leaders. I pretty much told them, it's upon their discretion for Family Day. I really don't think that at this moment in time, that should be a priority because we're pressed with a lot of other things. Elevators that are not working in senior developments. The fact that RAD and PAC is impeding resident leaders to have a meeting, which I have a problem with. And Bart, I just have to come out and say, accountability, they always talk. Yes, I duly respected NYCHA. They've made changes, but not enough changes. We waited already 2 weeks about the AWS. We just simply told them we don't want a pilot program. It was never a pilot program to begin with. They need to implement it immediately in all our developments because our developments are suffering. We're living under filth and squalor, and we don't have to go through the risk of losing precious lives because of lack of cleanliness and because of lack of accountability with NYCHA. I really think, and I'm going to continue to repeat like a broken record, we have to have a plan. Saying no about the blueprint, we all agree on that. All the resident leaders throughout the city agree with that. We don't want Rat Pack because it's detrimental as well. It's just a Band-Aid. We need to work and really enforce the plan of the second plan, which should be the forensic audit. We need to clean the agency itself because we have to have a plan. Saying no to it, rallying about it is one thing, but getting it resolved and finding a plan collaboratively with citywide council presidents as well as the resident leaders throughout the city, that should be our objective, really. I know we've all been locked up for a whole year in our respective developments and apartments, but Bart, candidly, I really think that maybe if you're able to get a printout, because I've been unlucky to get one on the actual expenditures from operations on down, because it seems to be a secret and I don't understand why. And that's one of my concerns. I will elaborate on the next time we have a meeting because I don't want to keep all of you. I know you've had a long meeting this evening, but I really would like to ask Bart, if possible, if you can get that in your hands, because we need to have a plan. Saying no to the plan on the blueprint is one thing, but we got to see what the expenditures really are. And we did speak to Chuck Schumer, was very promising. He's going to work with CCOP and resident leaders to try to get us to finally be stakeholders and policymakers with what's going on. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to support my colleagues and my counterparts about their rally June 10th, but we're still going to be at the table enforcing NYCHA to start opening those books financially. I don't know what you think about that, Mr. Schwartz. I'm interested to hear at least 2 minutes of what you think in that endeavor.
Well, I'm glad you raised it, because it's something that we are interested in. NYCHA does not have an internal audit group, and in most organizations that have federal funds or just large amounts of money have an internal audit or the equivalent of an internal audit group, which keeps everybody on their toes and spending the money properly or not spending it when it shouldn't be spent. So that I actually like to talk to you offline.
Yes.
Because the more specificity I can get, the more I can do.
Well, I'm totally in agreement with you at this moment in time. I'm really not much in the mood of festivities. I want to get back to the drawing board and start affecting change in whatever capacity we all can work, because everybody has a lot of good ideas and a lot of recommendations, and we just gotta enforce it aggressively. So I'm willing to do that with you, Bart. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Lozano. And thank you for being here on behalf of CCOP. And thank you for those final remarks for our meeting. I did want to make a couple of announcements for upcoming dates. We will have our next CAC meeting. It will still be virtual on August 10th. We successfully made it for the 6 to 7:30 hours. So we'll try that again next time. It was ambitious, but thank you all for keeping to the time and for making important comments and remarks and updates. We appreciate each of you. And then my colleague, Ms. Edna Handy-Peoples, has started a series of town hall meetings with the monitor and our pillar team leaders talking about being able to deep dive some issues. So we've already had a meeting that Mr. Chuck Fax hosted talking about pest and waste. We've already had a meeting that our Deputy Monitor, Dan Brownell, hosted talking about elevators, and that series will continue. We'll be talking about mold, heat issues, lead issues, et cetera. We'll continue that series. We'll also continue our community meetings that we've been doing in each of the boroughs. That series will continue virtually, where we have our VIPs from each borough. Next, we will be in Queens on July 13th, and then we'll be in the Bronx on September 14th. And of course, our CAC meetings will continue every other month We have our August 10th meeting, our October 12th meeting, and our December 14th meeting. Perhaps we can be in person though as the fall continues. So thank you all for your continued work on the CAC. Again, thank you all who joined us virtually and on our live stream. And we encourage everyone to stay engaged as we continue to have these opportunities to meet with the community, with the monitor and the monitor team. Eva, I just want to turn it back to you really quick. Did you want to make a point of clarification?
Yes, I put this in the chat too, and I know that we've had many conversations with the monitor team about the role of internal audit, but for the record, NYCHA does have an internal audit department. I know it's not in the functional chart that the monitor team would like it to be, but we do have, we are not subject to PAA. I just want to, sorry, I should clarify that for you, for Katie. We are not subject to PAA. And we do have strong controls on our finances. In addition, all the CCOP members were invited to participate in property-based budgeting training this year so that they can learn how the property budgets work and what the property managers do. So we are trying to be more transparent and extend financial, partnership to the resident association leaders. So happy to talk more about both of those initiatives.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you before on this. There was not an effective internal audit group. There was, it doesn't have the resources. It doesn't have the experience. We can talk about it offline and continue to talk about it offline. But I definitely do not agree with you.
Thank you. And with that, Bart, please close us out.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone again for all the effort that you put into this. Each time we have these meetings, we learn more. It gives us ideas, and then we go back to you. I know many of you know that. We go back to you to get more information and to see how we can follow up. And I assure you that we will do that as well with respect to the things that were raised today. But thank you for all the effort that you put in. If I could take for myself, is the police officer, the Cohn, is he still on, or did he leave? I wanted to find out where he grew up in Brooklyn, because I'm a Brooklyn boy also. So I'll talk to him offline as well. I wish you all a good night, and thanks again for everything.
Thank you.